So, Alexis, maybe before we begin, would you be kind enough perhaps to introduce yourself and say a little bit about your role at Orange?
Yeah, thank you, Ine. So currently, I have three hats at Orange. The first is that I am managing a team who is in charge of um, uh, designing and also maintaining the Orange operating model for the whole group, encompassing the business unit and the affiliates. And I'm managing a team which is spread between Poland, France, and we are supporting all the affiliates. Besides that, I am also part of what we call Orange Expertise community, and I am also the co-referent of this community, what we call future operations, building and designing future-proof operating model for all Orange and encompassing and leveraging AI, automation, and all the tools and the technology.
Gosh, Alexis, you sound like a seriously busy person. So thank you
Yeah,
for being
thank you.
here with us. Maybe we should start from the foundations and have a look at. I'd like to hear what you think about why we need to move from autonomous networks to autonomous operations. What's driving this? Why is it necessary?
Yeah, thank you. This is a great question to set the seat. And I will say that autonomous network is a high-level concept. It's a vision, and I may say it's a framework that provides the standards, the guidance, and the frame. But as you may know, a framework remains theoretical until it meets the concrete implementation on the ground field. And operations is where you can implement the standards and to leverage the benefit and also to improve your way of operating. So in operation, you cannot lie. You cannot just uh, um, rely on a framework, a vision without any concrete implementation because time scarcity, time is the main driver of operations. If you are not able to automate and having a good level of autonomy in operation, time will burn you when you are facing an incident or a crisis or any issue. So it's all about evolving your operating model, your processes, your tools, your support chain, and split the responsibility between what you are doing internally, like Orange, and with your partners, vendors, and the ecosystem. And finally, having a good governance so that you can easily fix the issue before they hit you.
Okay, so it's very much about making things work properly and
Yeah,
on time, whatever that on time needs to be for different situations.
yeah, exactly.
And so, can we then dig a little more deeply into exactly what we mean by autonomous operations? Because there's all sorts of ingredients and suggested approaches in our industry at the moment.
Yeah. Um, Autonomous operation is, I think the definition is, we can have several definitions, okay? Because we can talk about autonomy in operation or autonomous operations. All these notions are linked to what we call 0x. 0x means that zero trouble, zero wait, zero issue, zero downtime, okay? Means that if we are able to having no issue, no trouble, no downtime, means that your operations are enough autonomous to deliver the solution to provide the connectivity our customer deserve. But achieving that, the zero X is not something you can just work on a local part of your process. You need to have a kind of systemic view, holistic view, and I will come back on what is the foundation of autonomous network. It's your operating model. You can have the best tool, you can have the best processes, you can have the best, I may say, methodology or technology, but if your operating model is not making things connect and work properly, you will not achieve any autonomy, even if you have the best tool. the magic wand of the processes of a human. So to make a kind of metaphor, autonomous operations, think about a car. The operating model is the fuel and the mechanism that enable this car to move, to roll. So by autonomous network is, I may say that you have the operating model behind that enable everything which are part of your operation.
Okay, so the autonomous operations are the fuel, but it means that all parts of the engine have to work too.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Yes, I have no idea how engines work really. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Um, so just before we go into a bit more detail about the data model and such, we talk a lot about benefits of autonomous operations, but who are the benefits for? I'm just wondering whether it's about better internal operations, better offers to customers, better experience for customers. Is it about cutting costs? Is it about, I don't know, better mean time to fix? I don't know.
Yeah, so this is also a great question because when it comes to benefits, it may depend, it may vary, but at Orange, what we have identified is that autonomous operation or autonomy in operation will enable us to provide the best connectivity our customer deserves. This is our target goal. And then thinking about for whom autonomous operations is also for ops guys internally to make them, to help support them in their day-to-day job so that they can operate easily, fixing the issues very quickly, very faster, learning from the past and anticipating by proactivity, becoming more proactive, not reactive one, to solve incidents, analyzing, filtering the events for fault management so that we can have a good maintenance strategy and we can change configuration easily in a flexible mode. Better network delivery, this is for Orange, deliver better, stronger, better, and operate faster and safer. And also it's about saving money because if your operation is enough autonomous, you can save money for operational expenses, for OPEX and CAPEX, and you can really leverage, I may say, solution and innovate and provide more solution, more product in a faster way.
So could you say a little bit more about monetization? You kind of touched on it there about more products more easily. I mean, is that a major, major driver here?
Yeah, monetization is one also of the driver because you cannot expose API, enable customer B2B, B2C to use the network API if your operating model, your operation are not enough autonomous. Means that think about platform. Today we are talking about platforming, platformization, but platforming is not new. It's something. It's not a trend, a fancy one. It's in IT we already have platform, but when applying platforming strategy to networks, means that the beneficial people who the target customer will be people who will be using our API. And at Orange we have a business unit called LiveNet with managing it and providing a good and strong API, secure API to be used. And this is something also we are proud with because it's making concretely how we are able to hide the network complexity operations, and make things more autonomous and more usable by our customers.
Okay, and I think a huge number of employees use LiveNet. Is that true?
Yeah, yeah.
In all sorts of departments and not just the obvious. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's growing. And so let's see what will be target next year because something that is becoming bigger and bigger, and because we are leveraging really autonomous operation in the platforming so that we can accelerate the API exposure and usage, of course.
Okay, and maybe does this also help with the ecosystem aspect? And could you say maybe a little about that ecosystem aspect of autonomous operations?
Means that with the standards or with our partners, what do you mean?
Well, with your partners and maybe providing services. And I'm just thinking about the role of APIs really here.
Yeah, with the ecosystem is from the beginning. 3 years ago, I was in a panel where we were talking how to really work with the ecosystem. And today, I think it's becoming a reality more and more real to work with the ecosystem. And from all the conferences or events I have attended, I can see that there is a kind of fuel, good vibes with ecosystem. When it comes to Orange, we are we are dealing with the multi-vendor because network function we cannot buy. We are not buying it from one partner. We need to depend on the network domain, depending on the network function. We are dealing with network vendors, and here is where the complexity starts and the challenges raised because achieving autonomous operation internally means that we are able to frame and work at the boundaries of our operation with our vendors so that we can influence them, ask them to provide their package as a platform so that we can build and set up CI/CD pipeline internally to test, validate, check, integrate before deploying. But this is very challenging because, we are not using the same tools, not the same process, and sometimes we are not using the same infrastructure. So this is very challenging, but I am convinced that the way to go, because also driving autonomous network means that we are able to having data. Because if you don't have data, useless your processes and your tools, but data coming from different sources, and also sometimes data are provided, raw data are provided by our vendor equipment or vendors infrastructure.
Okay, we're going to come on to the data model in a moment, but Alexis, I forgot to say at the beginning that our audience, if you take your cursor to the bottom of your Zoom screen, you'll find a toolbar, and in there is a Q&A box. And if anybody would like to ask Alexis anything, please can you type your questions in there, and we'll hope to take them at the end. Alexis, I'm sorry to disturb your
no, it's okay.
that was my fault for the beginning. Okay, so you were just starting to talk about data there, and of course, no data, no AI, no of any kind, and no autonomy. So can you tell us about the data model and just explain why it's so important? And I mean, ever since I've been writing about telecoms, which is a very long time, I think we can leave it at that. We have been struggling to tame data because we have so much of it flowing off the network, not to mention customer record. I mean, we've got more data than just about anybody in the universe. Well,
yeah, exactly. When it comes to data, it's very challenging. 3 years ago, we were dreaming about a common data model for everybody, so that like API standard, REST API in IT, or some common standards in networks. But as you are mentioning, we have a lot of data, we have a lot of sources, and we have a lot of formats regarding the data. And I'm not saying that I'm giving up, and I'm not. I don't believe we can have one day common data model. We can have, but the goal is not to just to having a common data model. At Orange, our strategy is to identify the data we need, okay, and make this data available by all the parties so that they can leverage their own business. And we have what we call data democracy. And behind data democracy is how do we enable the access to the right data to people who are building the business so that they can use it and build their own business. And then they will have maybe their own data model depending on the business context or requirement, and continuing to work with the ecosystem so that we can have kind of API open to use the data, get the data from the equipment so that we can use them internally. And I think coming to data is like a cake. If you are able to cooperate with your stakeholders, you will move faster. But if you are not able to collaborate to identify the data you need, maybe you will left behind because you will be struggling with things that are not creating business, but preventing you to move forward.
Okay, so you'd like a commendation model with all your partners, but whether it's Exxon or Nokia or whoever, everybody has their own way of doing things. So that's quite a challenge. So I guess if I'm just recapping here to make sure I understood correctly.
Yeah.
Is that it's a case of presenting the data so that it's usable however people process it and manage it. So it's got to be in a certain standard. People know what to expect.
And exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Do you feel, I mean, you said about it being a bit like a cake and everybody wants the biggest piece, although nobody wants to admit it. But I mean, is that part of the issue that everybody's trying to get the biggest sort of control of the overall operation? And so it's kind of trying to manage that competition amongst cooperative partners.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a big challenge. So it's where I think agility starts, and also trust and collaboration start, because if you target the big piece of the cake, maybe you will reach it, but you can also having nothing in the end.
Yeah, because if you grab too much, you come away.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So, and you said to me when we were talking earlier that you feel like everybody's working on the scope and improving data in the for services and infrastructure. So it seems that this realization has everybody's realized that they can get a piece of cake or no cake unless they cooperate.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so now, because we know Orange is a bit of a trailblazer here, could you maybe provide us with some examples of how Orange is approaching autonomous operations? You've said some things, and maybe a bit more about specific goals and timelines. And also, how closely is Orange's work on autonomous networks tied into autonomous operations? Are they like two horses in a harness, or?
Yeah, the question is simple, but the answer is very tricky because tricky question. Because why it's a tricky question? It's a complex one for Orange because, as I mentioned in the previously, we are working with multi-vendors context.
Yeah.
So autonomy is not just how Orange is operating; it's how we are operating with the vendors, with the partners, with the suppliers. So may depend if it's Orange who is in charge of operating or it's delegated to a managed service manager. So you can see that the level of autonomy will depend who is responsible for what. And also another parameter is that you have multi-domain in networks. So you have access, core, transport, IP, and so on. So the level of autonomy in operation in each domain is not the same. To be honest, we cannot say that we have the same level in RAN, in fixed access network, or transport, or in the core. And we have also several affiliates, okay? 26 in the world means that the level of autonomy in Spain is not the same in France, in Belgium, in Senegal, or in Ivory Coast, okay? So now, if I may say that despite this complexity and all parameters, I think today we are more close to autonomous autonomous operations in many domains compared to 3 years ago. But in some domains, we are still fixing the basics, because it's very hard to determine, to scope, to delimit what can be automated and what must remain human and so on. So if I do in a scale, because we made an assessment with TM from autonomous network, maybe we'll come back on that.
Yeah.
And the global, I may say, the global number is between 2 and 3. We are not at 3. We are not 4. We are over than 2. That is 2.5, 2.8. But that doesn't provide the level of autonomy. It's a measure. If we deep dive, we can see that in different domains, maybe we need to improve, or we are level 4, but we are not level 4 everywhere, or level 3. So very difficult to provide a figure for this whole domain. But the good news, if I can conclude on that, is that today we are working on what we call new operating model, which will enable this journey or accelerate this journey to autonomy, because we have AI inside, Gen AI, we have automation, and we have people who are being skilled, and we are revisiting everything around operations. And I'm leading this program inside Orange. And I think by next year, if I am back with you, maybe I can provide more insight, concrete implementation, and more figures on what we achieved so far.
We very much hope you will be back with us next year. Okay. So you touched there on TM Forum's autonomous networks model framework, whatever you want to call it. And how relevant is that to the autonomous operations? Because it's kind of measure of specific tasks within the network, isn't it? It's not quite the same thing. And also, as you say, every single operator, I would imagine, is going to be at different levels in different parts of operations and the network and the organization. I mean, nobody's going to be level 4 absolutely everywhere all the time. I mean, say, or level 2, whatever. So how relevant is that AN model to autonomous operations?
Yeah, great question. So we have started to implement the TM Forum autonomous network standard by 2022. Okay, I remember I was in Copenhagen, and it was starting to frame and see how telco operators can implement it. The good news is that since 3 years ago, I have one of my best friends, Asser El Nahat, who is leading this program, and we are contributing and working closely with TM Forum people to not to follow by the book the standard, because it doesn't make sense to follow by the book, because the context of Orange is different from Vodafone, Telefonica, DT, BT, and so on. So this program is aiming to contextualize the framework and implement it concretely at Orange. And we have identified 2 domains in operations. One is monitoring. Behind monitoring, you have fault management, event management, incident, and so on. And the second one is change. About change, you have change management, deployment, release, and so on. On these 2 main use cases, if we measure for change, I think we are good, very good, depending on the standard, because it's from level 1 to level 4, or level 5, but we are targeting level 4. We have a kind of level 3 in change, because we have automation and so on. But for monitoring, event management, as we are facing the challenge of the data, the pipeline of the data, we are between 2 and 3. Okay, but we are not implementing by the book the TM Forum standard, but it's a good news to having it. And I think it's setting and paving the way on how we can work with the rest of the ecosystem. And the good news is that the vendors are also stepping in this standard, because I think they realize that there is something to achieve or to gain if they are able to be, if they are compliant to this standard, and maybe they will make more business with their partners or the telco operators.
So it's a kind of helpful benchmark and a kind of roadmap.
Yeah, but it's show the way, and I will say that the journey rather than the destination. Level 4 is the destination, but the journey to level 4 is where you will create the more beneficial part, because you will automate, you will learn, you will improve, even if you don't reach level 4, but your business will get better. But you can reach level 4 in some domains and still struggling with other domains. And you cannot say that I am level 4 because some domains remain in level 2 or level 3, and you are dealing with manual tasks, soil tasks, and you are losing business and your competitiveness.
Okay, and finally, Alexis, well, finally for my questions anyway, what are your next steps towards autonomous operations? Talking about roadmaps and guides, and what's your goals and the timescales you're looking at?
Yeah, I'm thinking about 2 or 3 main steps. Yeah, the first one is the operating model, AI powered telco operating model, what we call ATOM, and I'm driving this program. And by next year, I hope H1 will be providing the first guidance recommendation on the new Orange operating model. This is fundamental. Okay. Then
so it's work in progress right now.
Work in progress, but fundamental to move forward in autonomous in operations. The next big step is identifying the high value scenario, which is part of the TM Forum standard, TM Forum, to enable local implementation in the affiliates. We cannot just say, this is the way, everybody need to take the way. We need to contextualize and also to determine where affiliates will have the most significant benefits if they are able to improve the level of autonomy in their operation. Identifying the high value scenario is something that is it's a big step, but the good news is that we are stepping in, and we have several workshops ending this year, and it will prepare next year roadmap and challenges. And I think it's the two, and the last one, maybe it's about the usage of AI, real use case of AI, identifying where really we can leverage AI ops in operations, and starting to provide the guidance on how we, what we call AI-driven process management. We have the operating model, but how to really split the job between the human and the machine. And we are targeting 20% from human and 80% from the machine, the split of and the balance of the activities based on the process to become really AI-driven process management.
Okay, now we've got a couple of questions from our audience. So the first is, how do you measure internally your operational model maturity in terms of autonomous operations? Do you use your own? You've sort of answered this, sort of. So do you use your own measure, your own methodology, or? So I guess you partly use TM Forum, and I guess.
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a great topic. I can talk during 1 hour on this topic, because we have a methodology, and the methodology I have, it's inspired from Japanese art martial fighting, and it's called Shu Ari Kokoro. Shu Ari Kokoro Mu means that Shu is fixing the level, the bottom level, fixing the basics of operation. So we assess how affiliates are implementing our recommendation, the basics, and then the how, HA, is adapting the basics. When you learn the basics, you can adapt. You create your own recommendation, your evolution, adapting, and so on. And the kokoro is that you master the most difficult part with kind of ease and reflex. And the mu, that is the level where you are connected, you feel the operations, and then you are able to teach others and to invent. So this methodology is implemented, and we are measuring the effectiveness of the model and the benefits that are expected at each level. But maybe it's going to be a talk later on to see how we improve, we continuously improve, and continuous improvement approach we have, strategy we have inside.
I think we're going to follow that up next time you speak,
Yeah,
Alexis. It sounds really interesting. And very briefly, because we're right on the end of the session, someone else has asked which domains are challenging to automate, maybe most challenging, possibly they're all challenging, I don't know.
definitely RAN. Radio access
Ran.
network is very challenging. Yeah,
Could you just say like one sentence why Ran is the most challenging?
because you have vendors and you have also physical equipment, and your autonomy will you need to manage this part because you cannot just make everything software. You need also to deal with physical equipment.
Yes, it's when the physical gets involved, there's always trouble. Yes.
Yeah,
Alexis, it's been a great pleasure. Thank you very much indeed.
thank
And we
you.
look forward to seeing you in 2026.
Thank you. My pleasure. I will be there.